Getting back to the case of Rebecca Logan, our story yesterday, I reached out to you and you mentioned that the party was aware of the DUI on the record. Tell me about some of the discussion surrounding that when deciding whether or not to endorse her as a candidate.
I think Rebecca Logan has a very good explanation for that period of her life, the DUI, the message it sent to her, and how she learned from that. And it's really a great message. And I think as a mayor, she knows what it's like to make a mistake and to recover from that. And so in many ways, it's just a great character builder.
Did that ever become an issue for any of the members of the party when deciding about the endorsement?
What is the dog barking in the background?
Was that an issue of concern for any of the members when deciding about the endorsement?
No, I don't think so. There was no concern expressed about that. Everyone can make a mistake in their lives, and she's not shying away from it, and she's dealt with it directly.
Now, she's someone who's campaigning on responsible budget management, and looking through her past, we see a track record of what appears to be mismanagement of funds. Many of them, most of them, all of them of a personal nature. There's a claim, there's 3 lawsuits. There's a lawsuit by Key Bank where she took out a personal line of credit, didn't pay it back, from Wells Fargo where she bought furniture, never paid it, and then she bounced a check at a pawn shop and ended up paying twice for it. Now, you've said that's not unusual. What's normal about that?
Well, I've been in Alaska and Anchorage a long time, and when I ran for office years ago, I pointed out the failure of my Democratic opponent to pay his taxes, and he actually was foreclosed upon by the Mat-Su Borough. And I made that an issue in the campaign. I was young, full of vim and vigor, and the wiser heads and people who'd been there longer said, we all take chances in Alaska. We all invest in businesses or farms or take actions, and we have consequences to that. And it depends on how you respond to that, whether you keep plowing forward, whether you ultimately pay your bills and ultimately pay your debts. And so I think there's a lot of forgiveness in Alaska for people who hit different snags and bumps along the road. And there's a process for working that all out. And it really doesn't shake my confidence in Rebecca Logan, and I really think she'll be a far superior choice to Ethan Berkowitz as mayor.
If she's been sued by banks in the past for mismanaging her own funds, how can people in Anchorage trust her to manage the city's funds?
Well, I think that's probably putting it way too harshly. I think the inability to pay a debt at one point or another in your life, people's credit is good or bad at a particular time in their life. There's no reason to think that that's going to be something that hangs over their head. Now, if they retreat in depression and they just can't function anymore, that isn't how Rebecca Logan's dealt with the ups and downs in her life. She's taken the bull by the horns, gone on to be CEO of the Alaska Support Industry Alliance. She's been chair of the board of Chugach Electric. There's nothing in the management of that $500 million budget that gave anyone any pause. Her fellow board members elected her president. I think that if anything, she is not going to be surprised by any ups and downs, that she's ready to grapple with a lot of different issues. And for some people who've never had a rough period in their life, they might be shocked by, if you're a trust fund baby or something, you haven't actually gone out on your own and suffered the slings and arrows of misfortune. I have a lot of admiration for Rebecca Logan and how she's persevered.
Well, to be clear, there was money that was taken out for financing on furniture that wasn't repaid for 9 years afterwards. So to characterize it as an up and down in somebody's life for furniture or pawn shop check that bounced, is that a fair characterization?
Well, I think it's a fair characterization. I don't know if you've contacted the furniture people or seen what their perception was, or whether they were satisfied with the result or not. So I think it's fair to get both sides of those stories before coming down too hard on somebody. But the other side of the coin is how much money is involved in those decisions. How much money is involved in the decisions that Ethan Berkowitz has made as mayor? We're talking about tens of millions of dollars that have been spent on their computer system or I think I have mentioned my concern about how their wage and payment computer system is measuring overtime.
So if you're having trouble managing at a small level, how can you manage at a high level with large amounts of money?
Well, you know, when I was, I think that you're overemphasizing it. You could say that about me. When I was director of boards and commissions and doing redistricting for Governor Hickel, we were under a tight time frame. I let a contract out. I didn't follow the procurement code. I didn't do 10 days or 15 days or whatever it was, and I was dinged by the ombudsman or whoever it was in the administration. And you could say, well, if Tuckerman Babcock can't manage to follow state law, how could we trust him to be party chairman?
But 10 days, we're talking about 9 years here.
Yes, I know. Those are different levels, but it doesn't shake my confidence in her.
There's also an ethical question that came up as we were reviewing her past. There was a hearing that we have a transcript of and it's actually all within the file, that she was blocking court-ordered wage garnishments because she was the payroll accountant for her previous employer. So she was responsible for garnishing her own wages, but blocked it despite the fact that a judge had ordered that. Is that an ethical violation in your view?
Well, that's something that you should run to ground. I don't know enough about it to comment on that particular incident.
Well, should you? I mean, she's your candidate.
Oh my goodness, I have so many candidates, Liz. I'm not going to run to ground every allegation of any activity. But so I'm sure.
She's your mayoral candidate.
Yes, she is.
What kind of a vetting process do you guys do on candidates?
Well, we do not look into every wage garnishment issue in the past or anybody's history at that level. I mean, I don't know if that's a major issue or a small issue, if there was a reason or not a reason for it. The big issues to us are...
Well, should you know, I mean, if that's an ethics issue, if somebody used their position of power to block a court's order, is that a problem?
Yes, if that's what happened, and if there was no reason for that, or if it's a major issue. I just don't know that it is. But
you're asking people in Anchorage to trust Rebecca. Do you know whether or not she has an ethics violation in her past?
I do not know if she has an ethics violation in her past. As far as I'm concerned, she's a fine candidate for mayor.
So, you know, we presented the information yesterday, and really we got all that information just from going to the courthouse and pulling the records that stood out to us from just doing a simple court view search. Mm-hmm. And we found that information, and it appears to be an ethics violation. I'm not sure how you could frame it otherwise if you use your previous employer to block a court order. It was wage garnishments that a court was ordering.
What was the resolution?
Well, there was multiple cases of wage garnishments, and so there were it was thousands of dollars that were being ordered, and so I can run you through the history. So the judge had ordered the wage garnishments. She was the payroll accountant at the Association of Builders and Contractors of Alaska.
Oh yes, that's where I first met her. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you knew her at the time. Well, so she was insufficiently paying the wage garnishments for 6 months after the judge ordered them. Then she stopped paying them altogether. Mm-hmm. A year later, a judge said, you need to appoint somebody else because she's not garnishing her own wages. She's the one responsible for doing that in your company, so you need to have somebody else represent the company. So they appointed somebody else. It doesn't end there. They appointed somebody else, and then she told that person not to go to court. And so that person, according to a transcript from the hearing where she herself on the record said, I told Miss Northcutt not to go. That was who was supposed to appear on behalf of the association.
That's fine. Are we talking 20 years ago?
And then a judge, no, we're not talking 20 years ago.
Seriously.
This was less than 10 years ago. So then the judge said that Miss Northcutt needs to appear or she'll get arrested. So eventually that case, it was settled. And a payment was made, but at the time, she was using a position of power to block a judge's orders. And you're asking Anchorage voters to put her in a position of power again.
Well, I am completely confident she's a better candidate than Ethan Berkowitz. And I do hope that you're able to talk to her and she can talk to you about why that particular series of events occurred. But it doesn't trouble me when I look at Ethan Berkowitz and the crime in this city and the taxes in this city versus the bumps in the road and the stumbles, whatever it is that is in Rebecca Logan's past, doesn't compare to the disaster of Ethan Berkowitz running the city, to me. So I am very confident in supporting her for mayor.
Well, you're chairman of the party. Will you be asking her about that?
No, you've already got it well underway. I'm waiting to see what will happen next. It's one of many candidates that I'm working on, and you're doing a great job of looking into it, and I'm glad you are. And I hope that she has a great answer for it. And meanwhile, beating Ethan Berkowitz is what's on my mind.
Have you spoken with her about any of this history in her past that now has come to light?
Well, I have, as I said, I've talked to her about the DUI, and she has a great response for that. I haven't talked to her about these other issues because they are either a long time in the past or they're something that you've researched and brought to light, and I'm waiting to see what she has to say about it, and I'm sure the voters are, and it'll be a factor in the decision, and they'll have to compare that against what kind of mayor they want, and they're going to weigh into it as long as it's presented fairly and everyone's given a chance to respond. I'm sure you'll do that.
Sure. So just to clarify, the party was not aware of any of the lawsuits against Ms. Logan.
Well, the party is, of course, the 60 or 80 people, and I can't speak whether any of those 80 people that voted were aware or not aware. I wasn't particularly aware of that, but I would have asked some questions about it, but I don't think it would have changed my position that she was the best candidate to beat Ethan Berkowitz.
All right. So she's the best candidate within the Republican Party for this role?
Well, the candidates are always those who come forward to run, and she's the best Republican running.
She's the best one who's come forward to run?
That's right.
I think that covers my questions. Is there
Okay.
anything that you'd like to add?
No, thank you.